All it takes is a little bit of looking around the YouTube channels, and you can see that guides and angels are like a high up there on the list topic for people on the spiritual path. So do I have a program for you today? Questions and answers straight from my angels and guides with my lovely assistant Lynette and I having a talk from our personal experiences with those. And let me tell you, in the past, we never would have believed this stuff, but by the end of this hour, you'll be a believer. Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Messages of Hope. This is going to be a very special hour together because the topic is one that you all have asked for, and it's all about angels and spirit guides, how to connect with them more clearly, how to sense their presence. And I have with me my lovely assistant, Lynette Setzkorn, who has a whole bunch of questions, I hope, because she's going to be asking them, and I'm going to be asking my guides for the answers. So that's the best part of all. We're not just going to be talking about spirit guides. We're going to be talking to them and with them, and they're going to be talking to you. So how you doing, Lynette?
I'm doing great. It was fun to dive into this and collect the questions and think about my own experiences and, all of the things that have happened over the years. I think it's going to be pretty exciting.
So if you have your own experiences, by all means, chime in as appropriate here, because I know that you and I have shared many of your experiences, and they're just awesome. And we do want to acknowledge that one of our favorite guides is our former in physical form friend, our current friend, Brenda Bowman Baker, who I always feel up here. When she passed, I had no idea she would be my spirit guide, helping me with my mediumship readings. And yet she has left irrefutable evidence over the years that she's the one that talks to the spirits before they come to me and gets them all in line and keeps me in line. Yes, ma'am. So she's here already as well.
She always wanted to boss you. She wouldn't have done it in life, but she'll do it now.
You didn't. That's funny that you should say that. Did she say that to you?
No, she loved you so much. And she knew that this was going to be something big going forward. She said, y'all, we're going to have a mediumship school together. And we all laughed merrily because, Suzanne Giesemann, Brenda Baker, she was a lot of things, but she was a baby medium and developing. So we were just laughing merrily. She knew. It's funny how, like, even in our humanness, sometimes our souls will speak out. So I know when she said that about the mediumship school, that wasn't Brenda Baker. That was the eternal Brenda. That was the Brenda that knew what was going to happen going forward.
Yeah, I want to emphasize that again. Brenda was someone who attended my Heart Gifts presentation. You can watch that online. It's on YouTube. And she wrote to me afterwards, and that's how we met. And I connected her with you, and you two developed this soul sister relationship that is just so close. And you were with her when she took her last breath. But in the meantime, before she got sick, she was studying mediumship with a bunch of folks that we know, and doing very nicely and doing a lot of readings for people, but wasn't yet a professional medium. She was, like you said, we called her a baby medium, and she announced to everyone, Suzanne and I are going to have a school of mediumship. And I just remember thinking, really? it was ego. There might have been a little bit of ego there, but really it just was this disconnect. Like, where did that come from? So yeah, it absolutely came from the soul of her.
Yeah.
And you may not have realized it, but I want to ask you, because I never have. Did she ever say to you, where did that come from? Or how did I get the nerve to say that? Or I think she was just so positive that was going to happen.
Brenda had great certainty about most things. So yeah, I mean, she knew that was going to happen. And even when you gently shot her down, that doesn't sound very gentle, but you're like, nope, that's not happening.
Well, I wasn't going to open a school of mediumship, let alone with anybody else. It's too hard,
No, because when she said that, you hadn't even yet started teaching mediumship classes. So it's like, what? I mean, that was just nutty. And so it was just her soul speaking. And, that happened several times, especially toward the end of her life. I would talk to her and I would look at her, and there was just something. It was not Brenda. Brenda was the overlay of the the majestic thing within. I get goosebumps even talking about it because her eyes became like depthless, and there was just this bigger thing that was revealed. Yeah. So wow, it's
So she's telling me
cool.
that we will be talking about the sign game that we play with her as a guide, because it's so great for all of you to learn to play the sign game with your guides as a way of validating that they're here. So we'll get to that. I do want to say, when you said you got the goosebumps, every time Lynette gets goosebumps when we're talking, I get them. She doesn't even need to say it. I'll say, you just got goosebumps, didn't you? And she got them just now. So that's because of what we call field effects. You listening and watching are a soul, and the soul is this field of light, this dancing, morphing, beautiful energy that solidifies itself into this human body. So that's where the goosebumps come from, especially when they're shared like Lynette and I have all the time. Our fields are intertwined, even though we're separated by miles. There's no space and time when it comes to the light. So just keep that in mind as we talk about spirit guides and angels, because they are especially light beings.
Yeah. Oof.
Okay.
Love that. Okay. Well, I have a great question that what you said just sort of leads into this. You want to hear it?
Well, of course.
Okay. What if I ask my guides for help, ask for confirming signs and get them, then implement the decision I was asking about and it turns out badly? Maybe it hurts me financially or in some other way.
Wow. I thought you were going to say, and I get the signs and it doesn't come to pass, or it doesn't happen. That has happened to me.
Mhm.
So I have to ask the guides this one, because I don't know the answer to that. Oh, okay. And you all may see it as we go along, this little twitch here that I can't create. That's my guide saying, we just gave you the answer, go with it. What I'm sensing from them is we label things good or bad, and we feel that losing money would be a bad thing, and certainly it can be a painful thing. But they're saying that when you act on something that you have in good conscience asked for help about, and you felt no constriction in making that decision, take the answer as the answer you needed. That's a challenging one. And so know that even with those things that you label bad, there are silver linings. And you will find yourself in a new situation as a result of that, where you will look back and say, wow, that was for my greater good after all.
Okay. I took this from a friend who had shared this with me. There's not any identifying information in here about this person. And what you just said is exactly what happened, and fairly quickly, as a result of, a pretty devastating experience. This person reached out to the one who had done the harm and was able to get some incredible insights into past experiences, lifetime traumas, and also, what it means to forgive and to understand others. So, yeah.
Wow, very validating. I'm so
Yeah.
I love that. You just
Yes.
good one on us here. And what the guides are telling me is a very good point that I learned early on, that often the nudge, the idea to ask your guides, we're going to be getting goosebumps throughout this show, to ask your guides for a sign is put in your awareness by your guides. So they're saying right now that we're always connected. And they also just said, I don't need to say, they're saying right now throughout this show. As I'm speaking slowly, that's because I'm listening to them. So my guides and I are going to be connected. Every answer I give you, I will do my best to make sure it's from all of us, guides and me. So all of our thoughts are not just our own. Because your guides merge with your field of awareness, always. Your main spirit guides, that is. Brenda takes a break. Well, she's here when I'm doing readings and other times, but your main spirit guides, they put thoughts into your field of awareness, your mind, and they feel and sound just like your own thoughts. So some of you just now said, so how do I know the difference? And to that we say, does it matter? If you learn to act on it because you do sense that this is going to be in your best interest, and it turns out that it does, in this case, that was really almost a trick question there, Lynette, because you knew it turned out well, but you said it didn't seem to turn out well. So I just love how the answer that came through showed everybody that's how it works. We label things bad, but life is just this spiral of good, what we call not so good, bad, right? Going on and on and on. And they're growth opportunities, the so-called bad things. May not always be easy, but yeah.
Well, I think it was really important. And I talked to this person, at some length after this experience. It wasn't a punishment. It wasn't like, oh, you now learned your lesson, like, shame on you for doing this. It wasn't that at all. It was the experience that gave was an experience that we would not choose in our human selves, that our souls make no judgment about, but that led to a greater understanding for the humanness and some healing, which was pretty powerful.
Which is what this is all about, because our souls really don't need the healing. The souls come for the full experience. You and I have had so many discussions about this, and a lot of people don't get that no, we came here for our souls to grow. No, the soul is this beautiful being of light that just wants to have more experiences, the fullness of life, which is love in full expression. And so it's the human part of us that can grow and catch up to and grow to match this beauty and fullness of the soul. So yeah,
love that. Want another one?
Oh yeah, let's just keep them coming. I want to fire them at me. That's that sounds like a little not so soft. Bring it on.
Okay, let's bring it on. Looking back on my life, I can see that there were times of angelic or guide intervention long before I even imagined such a thing. It's often said that we have to ask for help, but if that's the case, why are so many people who have no idea about guides or angels helped by higher beings? And I think they mean like the miracle stories that you hear all the time about interventions and even maybe, just general guidance and stuff that comes out of nowhere.
The image that is given to me is this. When we can think in terms of our part in the web of all connections, is that we are not standalone. We are sovereign in our own right. We make decisions, we have free will, but we often affect so many more people and may not even be aware of it. And I'm not talking about somebody that has a big YouTube presence. I'm talking about your family connections, your work connections, little things that you do have ripple effects, and your guides and angels see that and know that. And so there may be something for you in your very personal little world that you may need to ask about. But if the guides see that by helping you and nudging you to do something that you may not have asked for, and it's going to have a big effect on your family or your work, etc., they're going to put those ideas in your head. They're going to nudge you using the intuition, which is the way the soul speaks to you. So we can train ourselves to think in individual and group mentality at the same time. So it's me, but it's also we. And just keep looking at the bigger picture and the little picture, and that really changes our perspective.
Right. Do our guides ever disapprove of us? Can our guides actually have a dislike for our human incarnations despite loving the higher being? And guides have had human lifetimes, whereas angels have not. So I'm assuming angels would not do that, but who knows about guides?
I knew the answer just from talking with them and being with them, but I asked them point blank, and the love that they just sent my way was just delicious. The response is, we love you all so much. There is nothing you can do to cause us to disagree with you. And they end every one of the messages that I get from them every morning with, you are so very loved. And I hope all of you are aware of the Awake and Wait app, so you can read those messages daily or get them by email from my website. But they're so uplifting and never judgmental, are they, Lynette?
No, I mean, I have plenty of judgment for myself. I don't need it coming from a higher realm. But I remember reading that when I first found your work, I would read that you are so very loved. And there was literally, you know how you say BS, I mean belief system. Well, I mean BS, not belief system. I was like, whatever.
Because you couldn't feel it for yourself.
No, 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 not at all. But it didn't mean it wasn't real. And I think for me, that's been well, the whole guide angel thing has been really important to recognize that whether I feel or not, it's real. So whether I felt that I was so very loved, I do now, you know, but whether I felt it then or not, it didn't change the fact that it was. Yeah. So that's important, I
And
think.
it's so beautiful that now you know it and you read it and you don't
Yeah.
pause. So there is or doubt. There's hope for everyone. This is the path we're on. Your soul is love connected to all that is. And your soul has always known this, but your past and most of our past causes us to lose awareness that we are a soul here and now. And that's our journey, like us to come back to integrating that soul's awareness into our human stories here, to bring it into our daily interactions with others and how we talk to ourselves. That's why we're here, to be the soul in expression, not shut off from it. You know, Lynette, one thing we didn't talk about before we started going into questions is how I can be so sure that we have guides and angels. Anybody tuning in to me because I just popped up in your YouTube feed or you heard about me on a podcast may not know my background. 20 years in the Navy, retired as a commander, aide to the head of the whole US military. Don't talk to me about guides and angels. I thought that was ridiculous. And I was embarrassed when people would talk about my spirit guide or talking to the angels. No, we don't do that. And now there is, yeah, we used to say, no doubt in my military mind, but I don't have a military mind anymore. I mean, I can put on the commander hat real fast if you want me to, but I have left that left brain black and white behind. And because I sat in meditation every day since my stepdaughter passed in 2006, I came to know that we are beings of light and that we all have these higher vibration helpers in non-physical form. And they left zero doubt through showing me they knew exactly where I was, to the geographical location and where I would be the next day. That story's in my book, The Awakened Way. And that book is filled with the evidence, because that's what some of us left brain people need. And if you have doubts, read other people's stories and start asking your guides to show themselves to you. So really, to work with your guides, the number one key is first start with belief. Yeah.
Well, and I think, I don't know for sure, but I know that in my life, even before I knew what I know now, I had experiences that were inexplicable, that were clearly not of this world. And I didn't take it as any more than that. I would just say, that was weird, and set it aside. But what I started doing once I got on this path, probably, well, a long time ago, you know, the first near-death stories and Neil Donald Walsh and all that kind of stuff, was to start just kind of making a note, just a little note, you know, like, I don't know what this was, but this happened and it sticks out in my mind, so I know it was something. And if people do that, I think that it really helps to see, like you talked about, the preponderance of the evidence. You know, you start to see these things add up, and little miracles. You know, don't compare your miracles to somebody else's miracles, but look for those just little. It gives me goosebumps now just to think about the things that happen to us. I mean, have you ever encountered like an angel or a guide in embodied form in human life?
You know, Lynette, I think back to this time when I was, I was young junior officer, and I remember being in a store and seeing this man that caught my eye, and we just looked at each other. To this day, I remembered it wasn't some sexual thing. It was this connection.
Oh, I'm so.
and I can feel now he was transmitting to me, you're not alone. There is more going to be revealed. Oh, I didn't know what angels were at the time, so I just dismissed it at the time. But that encounter has come back, And it was no magical story like you've shared with me about your sister being saved by an angel in a car accident and he disappears, the proverbial story of that. But what I found so profound about what you said was when you said it first, I had these experiences and I would say, well, that was weird. I have heard that over and over and over from people who email me. And so if we leave people with nothing else today, it's, yeah, embrace that and ask for more weirdness because it's awesome. I have a folder in my computer of awesome spiritual experiences. It used to be a file, but that grew to so many that it's categorized with guides and angels and then mediumship. So absolutely, I love your suggestion to write these things down because even I have my moments. Oh, you're right. Not anymore. Had my moments of doubting and, could this be real? There's zero doubt now. But going back over what you've written down just brings back that magical feeling, but also activates the knowingness that's already here.
Well, and the clarity, like when you were talking about the man in the store that you ran into, it's so weird how those things can be so crystal clear. Like when you're recounting them, I mean, they're embedded. They're almost like, little gemstones that were given to be reminded that we can hang on to. Because I mean, I don't remember half my life, but boy, I sure remember, some of those incredible experiences of wow, just the magic. Anyway, okay, more questions?
But you just
Yeah.
said gemstones. I don't know if you remember when Ty and I moved to a house in Florida, and the backyard was a golf course with at least 40 gorgeous live oaks. It was one of the best views we've ever had, and I know you love trees. And I was drawn to go down and put my back against one of the trees. I'm not a tree hugger. Well, I guess I am. Right? I guess I am now. So I go up to this tree and I look down. Do you remember what I found in
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
two little crystals, little gemstones embedded in the bark? The bark had started to grow around them and they were just this big. One was pink and one was purple. How had that gotten there? The place where we were living was not developed long enough that the bark could have grown around the crystals. And that's the place where, if you recall, I'll tell this story too, because I believe it does fit in the category with angels and guides. I was drawn to this book once while I was at Unity Village doing a retreat on fairies. I didn't want to buy a book on
I was hoping you were going to tell this.
the military officer buying a book on fairies. I hid it from until I finally said, look, Susan, your daughter, came to me and said, go back and get it. So I looked at it. I can't buy this. And she came and said, go get it. So I got it. And this book said that there are these beautiful beings of light that can appear to us as the fairy tales of talk about fairies. And they're elementals. They love the earth and the trees. And that you can ask them to give you signs. And they love dragonflies. So I set a chair outside on our patio, looking out at those trees, including the one with the two crystals. And I said, so I'm sharing this story, Lynette, so that everybody will try this, even the left brain. This, you have to be willing to play. Trust us. You don't have to tell anybody that you're doing it, right? Until it happens, and then you're going to want to tell everybody. So I sat out there and I said, if fairies are real, I would like a sign. And Lynette, I couldn't see them objectively, but in my mind's eye, it was kind of like these little elves popping up from this little fern gully down there. It was like a Disney movie or something. I could see them. They were playing there. And then all of a sudden, hundreds of dragonflies.
Oh my God.
Around me. I might have seen one or two in however long we had lived there, swarming around my chair by the dozens into the hundreds now. Unbelievable. And then they just went away. They were real. That was objective. I could have found two of them on my lanai later dead. So I know they were real. And then never saw them again.
Oh my gosh.
So what is the point of all this? The guides say. it's all real. Our collective consciousness as humans say that some of us will say that's not real because we haven't learned to embrace the wholeness and the wonder of being love in full expression. But when we do, and we know that anything that can help us is just waiting to do so, to help us to learn to love ourselves and each other, what better way than to have magical fairies bubbling up from the greenery and sending us dragonflies as signs? Our loved ones do that all the time. So we just have to believe first. And I was snagged by that book. We talk about snags in the Awaken Way book. The book on the bookshelves. I would have passed by it any other time. I'm not going to read a book on fairies. And because I listened, and then Susan came in and pushed me and I acted on it, there's one for the Awesome Spiritual Experiences file, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and there's another piece of that I think is really important when you're thinking about guides and angels, because one of the questions that people often have is, why can't I feel them? Why can't I make that connection? Those fairies were living their little fairy lives right outside your door the whole time. And you were given a glimpse into that. You had a momentary opening of the different energy levels or whatever, however it works.
Channels on a
same-
TV, right? It's a different channel.
It is. It was a different channel, but it was still there all the time. You just got it for a minute so you could see because you had asked and you were open. And it's the same way with our guides and angels. It's lovely to feel them, but we don't feel them all the time. Or, I mean, some people do, because you probably do, or you can, but not everybody does. And some people will not ever feel them in the way that, for example, you do. But it doesn't mean they're any less real, and they're no less there, and they are ever present, always here for all of us. It can't be any other way. And I think people can just relax into that and just know and trust, and maybe even start the day by saying, I know you're here. I know you're with me. Thank you for being here. And then just go on and see what unfolds. And it could be something like an unexpected dragonfly, or who knows, maybe the fairies will come.
What she said. While you were saying that, you were absolutely correct. And when I said a TV channel, that's a metaphor, but it's very much like channels on TV. They all are here right now. How many stations are in the air right around you? Hundreds, because of cable TV. But we don't tune into all of them. We don't need all of them. We're not interested in all of them, like Lynette was saying. And so with me, it's not my path to teach people about fairies. That's the people come and they're drawn to my work because it's very grounded, and it can open people to connecting with loved ones who have passed, and definitely with guides and angels. And so, yeah, I was given, like you said, this taste of the fairy world for those of you who want that channel. So I was allowed to talk about it today for a few minutes, and people may be surprised. And don't worry, we're going to go put our hiking boots back on now and get grounded again.
We will. And so we'll go back to guides and angels.
Yeah.
Okay. This is would our guides ever quit being our guides based on how we are as humans? But you really just answered that on the disapproval question. So we will go on to, are our guides and angels with us before we're born? Are they part of our soul families?
They are part of your soul family, and yet separate, in that the soul family is a human lineage, whereas the guides oftentimes and many times go beyond the human lineage. So they're not going to come back and have another go at it as humans. The soul family is still going round and round in the human channel. And the guides are a different channel who have dominion over our channel, working with us, but not dominating us. Beautiful.
Yeah.
That was cool.
So this is sort of an adjunct to that. Do they help us with planning what we might want to do in a lifetime assuming that we do that before we decide we're going to do this again? And yes. I'm going to say decide we're going to do this again. So I think that's a really important distinction between we have to come back. We decide to come back.
Decide to come back.
Yeah.
I didn't answer that previous one fully, so I'm glad you put that rejoinder on there. They definitely help us plan this lifetime. They help us choose who's going to play what role within the soul family. They're with us afterwards to debrief this lifetime and decide if they want to help us in the next lifetime. So we don't necessarily have the same main spirit guides from lifetime to lifetime. And Brenda, as much as we love you, she's telling me right now that I may not come back and be a medium in the next lifetime. So she's goofing around saying, so you wouldn't have any need for me anymore. But we're part of the same soul family. We'll just take on different roles the next time. But that's interesting. So she says that she is a spirit guide now with mediumship, but she hasn't reached full like main spirit guide level so that she can come back and have another round as in human form if she'd like. She says it's like a nether world in between. Oh, that's interesting.
Wow.
Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. This is a little similar. Is there ever any judgment from our guides or angels? I think you pretty much answered that.
No judgment. But they do sit with us when we pass from this lifetime. As we go through the life review, they do sit with us as we go through the life review and help us to integrate what we see, how we affected other people's lives through our choices. So it's a loving presence, but it's also one of, this may not be the most comfortable for you, but you need to see this. Like a loving parent that loves you no matter what, but you need to see the effects of your choices, that sort of thing.
Yeah, or like your master's thesis advisor helping you go over your research and, you know, have this turn out and that kind of stuff. Like it's so important for me to not experience judgment from any quarter, because I've been so hard on myself, judging myself, and have, you know, from my earliest memory been told not good enough, never going to measure up. So anything that smacks of like judgment or you got to do it again or it's forced, that kind of stuff, it just freaks me out. So, but you've always said this, that returning is voluntary, that we're not judged. I mean, you said that a couple of times just today, and that it's always all about love in the end. And I think that's really important, certainly for people who might have my same experiences with religion and that kind of stuff.
Well, this is a key point here, because you were raised in a religion that was very heavy on judgment. And I'm thinking about our travels across the country. Sometimes there are billboards that jump out at you about judgment and the wrath of God and fear. And so what's the difference? Are we just Pollyanna here talking about, oh, there's no judgment and your guides are going to sit beside you lovingly no matter what you did and show you the effect you had? You will feel it. You will know the effects you have, but they're not going to judge you. Is that Pollyanna? No. And the difference is we have the experience of who we are in expanded states of consciousness. Nobody is telling us this is what it's like. We have felt through spiritually transformative experiences, you and I, Lynette, and many others, the love that is our true essence. And the love that those at the higher realms have for us, it's a love so far beyond anything that I felt in human form. Sometimes that comes out to the surface. I feel it when we're with other people who really get this. And you say, oh my gosh, this feels so good. And yet, when I go into pure channeling of my guides and get out of the way as much as possible, oh, that's bliss. And yet I'm still talking. So to go into an expanded state of consciousness where there's no talking, I can set the human side completely to the side and just merge with these higher beings who are telling us there's no judgment. That's when anybody can have the personal experience of how cherished we are. And that's what people should be preaching to each other. Ooh, I said should. I try to never say should, but wouldn't that be wonderful if everybody were preaching that from their own personal experience? Because that's what changes us. And then we can radiate that to others to make it easier for them to know how loved they are.
Wow. I was listening to a podcast the other day and it was talking, do you know who Sharon Salzberg is? She's a longtime meditation teacher.
Meditation,
yeah. Apparently she was in one of the first audiences when the Dalai Lama came to visit the US for one of the very first times. And I don't know when that was, but someone asked a question about, how we could come to love ourselves and, release ourselves from self-hatred. And apparently the Dalai Lama had to have like a long extended conversation with his translator because he didn't even have that concept.
Wow.
It never occurred to him that people might hate themselves, have self-loathing like Brenda did. Like I've always had until the last maybe 10, 15 years to a lesser degree than Brenda. And I think that's really, and that's not at all from spirit. That is totally of our humanness. That's not coming. But when you said cherish, that word is it's so delicious. It's like being wrapped in a soft blanket. I mean, that is, you can do no wrong. Oh, you're going to pull up. Yes. I was just thinking of that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Just that kind of absolutely unconditional love where you feel like beings are delighted with you, delighted, adoring, just that experience. That was my first experience with a spirit guide, was that feeling. And that's how I knew it was real. And it was probably it was like the first time I think I'd ever felt that to that degree. It was powerful.
So to get to know your guides and to get to know yourself and how much they as love and how much they love you, go to the gifts page on my website. There are multiple meditations there designed for you to experience these expanded states of consciousness. And gifts means free. Okay. The journey of remembrance, the journey of consciousness, radiant heart. I just listened to that one again for the first time in a long time, Lynette. Wow. Oh, goosebumps. Did you get the goosebumps with that? Radiant heart.
Doesn't that one go with Wolf's message?
It does. It's
yes.
Using Wolf's, from my book, Wolf's Message, Wolf's poem. And so half of it is my verbiage guiding you. And then the second half is free flow. And that's where the beautiful music by Jim Oliver and my words from spirit gets you to this beautiful state. And then who knows how you'll open up after that. So here's how we work with our guides. Even if you don't sense them answering, when you look at, say, a menu of gifts like that on the website, and you don't know which one to start with, your guides know what is just right for you. So you just, from your heart, trusting that they're here, you say, which one is perfect for me now? And you just notice that you're drawn to one. That's one of the many ways our guides will speak to us. I'm not hearing always that one right there, although I do. It's often very conversational. But to start with, for people who really don't understand how it works, use this anytime, even when selecting melons in a grocery store. Did I tell them what the story is?
Go ahead. I did get a good one that day.
Oh, remember Brenda said we'd get back to the sign game, and she did. That's it. We just came back around to it, right as we're talking about signs. So every time before I do a reading, I want to make sure that I'm connected to the different channels, the higher realms. And so I know Brenda's here ready to help me with the reading. I have to make the connection with the spirit, but she's helping them connect with me. She's orchestrating things, lining them up. And I'll say, Brenda, tell me something going on with Lynette right now or in the last 24 hours or so. So I know I'm connected, because if I can hear it from you, Brenda, and I can validate it with Lynette, then I know I'm connected. It works every time, doesn't it? It's stunning. So just last week or so, I said, Brenda, what's Lynette up to? And I texted you. I said, she's showing me as I get ready for a reading, you with this big, what looks like a rock in each hand, and you're weighing it and comparing it. Do you want to tell everybody what that was all about?
I think I was actually still at the store when I got that from you. I don't remember that exactly, but yeah. So how do you pick a good melon? I was at Whole Foods and I love honeydew melons. And what I've always heard is there's an aroma, but also a weight. So you pick up similar sized melons, and the heavier one is going to be the juicier, sweeter one. So I was doing this with these big melons in my hand, and I did get a good one. But Brenda was just right there. Which again, I had no idea Brenda was right there. She was, just because, you know, we were the dearest friends, but she's watching me pick melons, probably nudging me toward one, but I'm not aware of it. And yeah, so she used that. It was cool. It's so cool.
That's just one of hundreds of
Yeah.
examples. Every time I do a reading, we do this for fun. It's play and it's wondrous and magical. So everybody start doing this with your guides. Tell me something about my other family member that I don't know. Tell me something going on with so-and-so in my life right now that I don't know.
Yeah.
You learn to trust and you learn to understand how they speak to us, because many times it's just an image. I won't hear her voice necessarily. Sometimes she's sassy like she was at the beginning of this episode, but other times it's just an image. But every image also comes with a knowing in your gut and your heart. Okay, I knew she was weighing something and it looked like big rocks, and you can understand that. So see, it doesn't have to be
perfect.
Right.
Yeah,
The
that's such
sign
an
is
important piece, you know. I mean, ask your guide for a sign. Say, I'd like to have a, you know, a zebra, and you think, oh, that's impossible. So, because no zebra is going to come galloping through your yard in Georgia, but you might see a zebra on a truck, or, you know, zebra pops out on a page from a book. It's our like template or expectation that can sometimes limit our belief that guides are actually doing what we're asking them to do, showing us a sign. Oh, well, it didn't come the way I expected, so that couldn't have been it. You know, 14 zebras came down the street on trucks and cars and license plates, but it wasn't an actual, you know, horse-like zebra galloping away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what you just said, that sign game there is a beautiful way to get validations from guides, in that you say, all right, I just got some guidance from you, or what I think it is. How do I know it wasn't my imagination? You can either say, give me a sign of, and fill in the blank and ask them for something, or what sign are you going to give me to validate this? Either way, the guides put that thought in your head. They tell you what to ask for, but you don't realize it. So it's just a lot easier to say, what sign are you going to give me? That shows up, and then it's just really fun to forget about it. And when it does pop up in the next few days, it's wondrous. Add it to your document.
That's perfect. Okay, let's have another question.
Please.
Yeah. I think I read the same book. I read a book once that said we couldn't expect contact with higher beings like archangels, masters, angels, or bigger guides unless we were pure and good enough ourselves that we become worthy. Is that true?
Well, every one of us has the most worthy soul, because every one of us is a direct extension of the one soul, which is the original expression of source, God, spirit. We're already worthy, but wouldn't it make sense that the guides and angels would want to help those who don't know it more than ever? Yeah. There's no hierarchy, they said, and none are more worthy than another, they're saying right now. So what better time to ask for help than if you're ashamed, feeling guilty, feel not worthy? That is such a human affliction. The more I do this work, the more I find people carrying around these burdens. And if we get nothing else through in this show, it's how very loved you are. And like you heard Lynette say, it took her years to get over that. So it's okay to feel that way, but won't it feel beautiful when you get past that?
Mm-hmm. And it does. It really does. I do think I actually read that book, and it was a channeled book from Jesus, and it was beautiful. And this piece back here was in an appendix. And I remember at the time thinking, how could those words of Jesus be so incredible? And I know now it was the words of Jesus, yes, channeled through this individual. But the appendix that was her. That was the person. It was her own stuff.
Oh, wow. See the difference.
Yeah. Well, because I mean, Jesus came to me when I was sobbing my heart out, thinking I just wanted off the planet and my husband was dying. And that's when I felt Jesus for the first time, physically felt Jesus. So I wouldn't have been worthy or pure. I was a wreck. You know, I think that's how it is for all of us. Now,
you just interpreted that. Remember, you didn't feel worthy or pure, but you were worthy and pure.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know. That was 2001, maybe 2002. So I didn't know yet. I hadn't met that Suzanne Giesemann person, her awakened way thing.
Well, we all come to it through different ways, but hopefully we're helping you today get there a little faster.
Okay, do new souls have more guides than older or more experienced souls?
The term new and old souls is a human construct. The soul is simply energy that's dancing around in a realm where there is no time. So it's the soul. There's one soul and it just keeps bubbling up as new fields. So if a soul says, I'm going to incarnate as a human now and start on this human channel of being, the human lineage, then it may not have had as many experiences and have come to know who it is. That's what we would call a younger soul. So do they have as many guides? Guides are so powerful that it is not necessary to assign more to challenging cases. Interesting.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, my human side went, probably the more the merrier, right? We can use all the help we can get. And say, if right now they're saying, if you just open up to the power and the glory that your guides are willing to bestow upon you, you will realize how helped you are. Yeah.
Okay, you had a guest on recently who talked about inviting in the archangels and her experiences with that. Have you ever done anything like that? Should I try it?
Oh, again, no shoulds, but why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
But I didn't believe in archangels at all. That was like another level. Oh no, I'm starting to believe in guides because they're showing me all these wonderful evidence. And angels, the stories about the angels, I just couldn't deny that angels are real. So I actually have a YouTube video, Angels Are Real. Check that one out. And then Archangel Michael is Real is just a phenomenal story. No other explanation moments. So do I believe in archangels? Absolutely. No doubt whatsoever. And so I call on Michael quite often. And I don't feel his presence. I don't know if he's always helping me, but life is flowing very nicely. And when it doesn't flow that well, does that mean I've done something wrong? No, like we said, going back to that first question again, sometimes our challenges lead to growth and they help other people. So absolutely call on the archangels. I told you I had one show up in my meditation that I didn't even know who she was. Absolutely a female. And heard a name and looked her up and I'm like, gosh, it is an archangel. Beautiful divine energy coming to help me embody more of the beautiful feminine energy, because as you know, most of my guides have very much a masculine energy, which is interesting.
It is interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have two female guides and a guardian angel that has a feminine kind of feel. And I mean, they're temporary guides, kind of the women, but women.
Let's talk about
the female beings.
Let's talk about that temporary guides. We've used the term main spirit guides throughout this show. And they're with you during that soul planning stage, during your life, and the debrief afterwards. However, Lynette just mentioned temporary guides. You have guides that come in and out of your life for certain issues you're dealing with, or things you're going through in your lifetime, or tasks you take on. Brenda is my mediumship guide. There was no need for me to have a guide like that until I became a medium. And she says she'll be with me to the very end. So I guess that means that the work will continue. Glad to hear it. But you're doing readings, yeah, till your dying day. So, okay. Well, why wouldn't we, right? Once you open up that connection. But it's really helpful to know that you can ask for a guide for certain things. If you're going through a relationship challenge, ask for a relationship guide. If you have a new job, ask for a guide that can help you specifically with that job. And you will probably be assigned one who is versed in the kind of work you're doing. So it's really fun. And we can ask for a joy guide if we're feeling that we need a little more of that in our life. How about you, Lynette? Do you know of any specific specialists you've had over the years?
Well, I've had a writing guide. Yeah. Who I don't call on.
Yeah, well, that guide must be really, really good because your writing is off the charts wonderful. Check out the Unwitting Miss. Is that it?
It's an unexpectedmystic.com.
And
Yeah.
unexpectedmystic.com. She is a
Yeah.
phenomenal writer. So we'll get
And the reason for that is to keep track of the miracles, the little miracles. I don't always write them down, notes everywhere, but some of the miracles are recounted there, you know, connections and that kind of stuff.
yes, and then you project it out to how your miracles help other people know what's possible for all of us. Yeah.
You know, 6 weeks after Brenda died, the three of us who were with her when she died, Raven and Valerie, and then two others, Laura and Nana, we all went up to Ojo Caliente hot springs in north of Santa Fe. Do you know where that is? Beautiful in the mountains, and it's mineral springs, and it's a kind of a resort type thing, but it's just, you're there to take the waters like people used to do when they were healing. So we were there for, I think, 3 or 4 days. And as we were walking out on Sunday, you know, we'd had some really profound discussions and experiences and healings and that kind of stuff. We were walking out on Sunday, and as we walked past room 33 on the way out, Raven and I were side by side, and we were talking, and we both got this whoosh, just huge. Did you feel that?
I felt it coming before you even said it. Whoa.
I know. Well, meet Ojo. That's the guide that Raven and I actually share.
Oh.
And yeah, and that was the first awareness that I'd had. I don't know if that's when, you know, Ojo came, but we call him Ojo because of Ojo Caliente. I don't worry about names of guides too much anymore, but they used to be a real big deal. But it was just like suddenly the advent of this thing, and it felt like, and Raven sort of channeled the message later that said, you know, you've been through this trial by fire of losing someone that you love so dearly, and the difficulty of sitting with someone as they're dying. And I'm here with that greater wisdom that you have to work with you on that level. And I get constant signs from that guide.
Well, what's beautiful is that you knew who it was. You both recognized it was a guide. I have so many people come up to me when I teach classes, and they say, well, I felt this presence. What was it? This is part of the 3 E's of the Awakened Way. You know, we're educating you. That's the first E in this program. Then we're encouraging you to experience your guides. Check out the meditations we talked about. And that's the 3rd E, engage. So you felt that whoosh. And so if you all have an experience like that and don't know what it is, this is your time to say, oh, that's not me and my sovereignty here. That's someone else in my field. Who are you and why are you here? Right?
Yeah.
And then what shall I call you? That's one of those big questions everybody wants to know. What are my guides' names? They don't have them, right, Lynette?
Right.
That guide was not Oho.
We call that one Ojo just to have a reference.
Right. Yeah. So, and they're fine with whatever you call them, but they'll, if you say, what shall I call you? They know you're going to play the sign game with this name. Mm-hmm. They're going to give you a name that you'll see in the next few days to validate that. I remember a woman at this workshop I gave, she came up to me, she said, I heard the most ridiculous name when I asked, what shall I call you? There's no way I'm ever going to hear that. And she came back the next day and said, it was on a cartoon show my daughter was watching on TV last night. Now, see, that guide knew her child was going to watch it, or guided the child to turn up the TV, then heard it. Validation. Yeah.
That's such a thing that we do. We want the names, and we want to know what they look like. And I remember, you know, I'd done Meet Your Guide meditations after Mike died, so 2012 and after, when I really got into this. And I never had a sense of anything there. And people would come out of those meditations, and it was always something like, and I'm not discounting this, it makes me laugh kind of, but it's like, my guide is Pocahontas, and we're, you know, da 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 da, or Cleopatra has been my guide since, you know, for 1,000 lifetimes. And my first encounter with a spirit guide, it was just light. It was,
me too.
But oh my God, the love. That guide wrapped me, and I feel like it's a male presence, it's a male being, and wrapped me in his arms, and I could not quit crying. It was unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And it was just light, just light.
Yeah. That's
Just
the experience. So everybody set that intention, and so I love that you brought that up, Lynette, because my guides don't look like people, and we've just had this discussion. I do monthly webinars where I share the latest from my guides. You can find that on the featured items on my homepage. Every month, new stuff from the guides. And next month, I'm going to be sharing the conversation I had with them. I don't see you. I would love to see you. And they said, you already saw us years ago. And it was like you said, Lynette, just light. We get this idea in our heads that they need to show up looking like a human and we can describe them. They will, if that will help us, but it helps us more to get to know that they are light beings and you are light beings.
Yeah.
And when you can come to know that, that's when you really understand why you can't be alone, why you are always helped by your guides. It's beautiful.
When I met that guide, I was insistent on having a name, give me a name, give me a name. And finally I just went, I did a serious, like a real meditation, not just tossing off, tell me your name, tell me your name. And what I got was Ernest, not Ernest like most Ernest people, but Earnest, which was perfect for me because, I've always been a clown, class clown, that kind of stuff. And the jokester, but Ernest was like, it felt like devotion, like I am earnestly devoted to you. And that was the feeling that I had in that hug that night. And again, that's one of those things I don't know exactly where I was when it happened. I know who was there and who was in that room. And that experience is like crystal clear. And it's been 12 years probably. So, yeah.
I love that word devotion. We rarely talk about that, but they are devoted to us because they know that by helping us remember that we are love in full expression and how loved we are, our light turns up and we help each other. It's all about the wholeness, the oneness, not just about us. They know that, and they are so devoted to turning up the love and helping us turn it up. So if we can have that same level of devotion to our spiritual path, to working with them, even if we don't see them, even if we don't hear them, using some of the tools that we've talked about here, but just talking to them and sitting and acknowledging them with gratitude, you will have more and more of a relationship. Don't you agree?
Oh, I do. And I can't emphasize this enough because it's been such an issue for me. It doesn't matter how we feel. It's wonderful to have those experiences of intense feeling and emotion, but whether we have those or not, they're here and they are just as devoted to us and just as cherishing of who we are, whether we feel it or not. So act as if it's real because it is, and then hopefully somewhere down the road there's a glimpse, because all those things are just glimpses. We just sit little tears in the fabric of the universe, and it's like, there's Ernest, my guide, who I never knew I had, but that love, that kind of thing. And then we go back to being human because that's what we're here for.
Yep. And so it's not everyday bells and whistles either, right?
Right.
It's these occasional spiritually transformative experiences. That's the big ones. And then can be a regular feeling of love. And some days there's absence of awareness. And that's just the way life flows. But be devoted to loving these beings you may not have met yet in this awareness, because you know them already at another level. Be devoted to that with gratitude, with playfulness and curiosity, and start your folder, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And then also, like, wake up in the morning and say, good morning, guides, angels, loved ones. I'm so glad you're all here with me. And you leave the house, say, let's go. Is everyone coming, or is it, just play with it, be playful and just act as if. And pretty soon, I think the experiences come for most of us, not always.
Yeah.
But that doesn't change the fact of it being real.
It is very real. And there's a whole section in the practical tools of the Awakened Way about working with your A team. And that's because we call our spirit guides and angels the above team, and we're the below team. They're not really up there, right? They're permeating our world. So it's just a metaphor again, but practices that we've talked about, engaging your higher helpers, discerning yes and no answers, that will really help you communicate with your guides very quickly if you can learn how they're going to give you a yes and a no. Asking for evidence like the sign game, letting them snag you when they want to get your attention. They are, everybody, your guides are so ready and willing and waiting to work with you. Have fun with this. I know I had fun with this program today, Lynette. Thanks for making it.
Yeah, it was a blast. Oh my gosh, you do this all day. It's such a joy to think about people who might hear something here that gives them that spark. And then they go, do some of the things that you've suggested, read the Awaken Way, because my God, you can't find more tools than that are in that book. And then like something happens, something that is not of this consciousness, not of this state of consciousness. And it's like, such a thrill.
And then hopefully y'all will find someone to share it with who's open to it. If others aren't, don't go there. That's their path. Find somebody who's open to it. And if you can't, your guides are. So talk to them.
Yeah.
Right. But meanwhile, right here in our beautiful Awaken Way community, we know and we appreciate it. And we love that you're on this journey with us.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Lynette.
Thank you, Suzanne. And thank you, everybody, for joining in. We're sending in the questions. These are great.
Okay. Y'all have a great week.